Y'all, welcome back to Kentucky Fried Wargaming, where two guys who aren't qualified to talk about anything decide to talk about a game with hard math and chance. I'm Joe.
And I'm John.
And this is our first episode back, John. First one back since we did the big move.
Yeah.
The Great Migration.
Yeah. I'm still tired. It's been like 5 days.
Why is moving so involved? Why's it gotta be so friggin' hard?
Why can't we just instantaneously transport all of our belongings from one location to the other?
Why can't I blink dash with my everything to the new house and just be in it?
I mean, I would be out of a job if that were the case.
What if I just threw all my stuff in a big old tube like in a bank, and then I tubed it all to the new place?
I feel like that's still involved. I feel like that doesn't solve a lot of the problem.
John, I feel like you're wrong. I feel like it solves every problem, except that it's terribly inefficient transport system and can only move one or two people at a time. But that didn't stop Elon Musk. Anyway, moving on. We are back. And we are recording from our new spaces for the first time. And John, I don't know what your space is looking like over there, but mine is bigger, it's brighter, but it's a touch empty. So if the audio still needs a little bit of mixing, we apologize. We're going to have to do some work on it. I'm going to have to hang up pictures and stuff to make sure everything gets good. And I'm sure John's in a similar boat.
Very, very much so. I went from a 4 foot by 5 foot space, maybe, to a whole room. So
big upgrade.
We got a lot of stuff I need to put in here.
Mm-hmm. And that's just going to come with time. And we will I'll tune the audio settings in, but Seth is a wizard. So hopefully by the time it gets to y'all, it's not so bad. But
whatever pain you're feeling, Seth is feeling it much more. He's going to hate us by the end of this episode. I can almost guarantee it.
Hates us already. Beat him to
it.
Yes. But for those of you guys who haven't been with us through the past few episodes, we've been moving. We moved into our first houses. And because we're unlucky madmen, we ended up doing it at the same time. So the podcast kept going. Y'all didn't miss anything on your end. We had some backlog episodes that we bulk prepared so that we'd have a little bit of time to do what we need to do. And with that has come a hobby hiatus of sorts. Not because of some big grandstand against Games Workshop or anything like that, but largely out of practicality, because, it's hard to hobby when everything's in boxes. And not just your hobby stuff, I mean your everything is in boxes. So we gave ourselves a little bit of a break, not just from the podcast, but from hobbying, so that we can do what we got to do to get moved in and get unpacked. And it's done. And John, it's first time in a few weeks. Well, let's talk about hobby time and games played. So, John, I feel like this is normally where I say, well, what you been up to, bud? But I have a feeling I know what you're going to say. But allow me to ask, what you been up to, bud?
Moving.
Yeah.
Setting up a new hobby space. Mm-hmm. Reading. I've been doing a lot of reading. Oddly enough, not really wargaming related, but it's within the gaming sphere. I've been doing a lot of deep lore dives into Eberron.
Oh, D&D.
Yeah, I haven't ran a D&D game in what feels like forever. I haven't played classic kind of D&D with a setting in a long time either. And I'm starting to feel that itch again. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm moving to a new place. Maybe I just want something comfortable. But yeah, I've been looking back into doing D&D 5e. I'm a huge fan of 5e. I've played a bunch of it. Before that, I played 3.5. Before that, I played 3rd edition. So I've just been digging into things and just kind of remembering all the stuff about Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Reading some of the reveals from the Goonhammer site about the new Auric Warclans book. Haven't gotten around to Stormcast yet. waiting patiently for something to happen in 40K that is associated with one of my armies. That isn't the Space Marines I'm slowly working on in the back burner.
Yeah, 40K is a really quiet space right now.
It's going to be quiet for the rest of the year if their timeline is anything to show. But maybe tomorrow, because we're recording this on the Tuesday before the Gen Con reveals, maybe the Gen Con reveals will knock our socks off.
I mean, the 40K Gen Con reveal is a Black Templar model. Like, it's just going to be a model for the thing we already know about.
Oh, don't you do this to me. I want to hope that it's World Eaters.
John, I want you to look at that silhouette. Just take a gander.
I know that's not World Eaters. I'm hoping that they surprise me with something else. Like, I don't know, announce that January of next year they're going to be like, oh, we dropped a World Eaters army specifically for Mr.
I don't think that's going to be the case, but I'm going to cross my fingers for you. I'm sending out my good Wuju your way. I don't think you're going to get it, but I'm sending it anyway. So, I mean, obviously, you're in the new hobby space. How has that been? Sort of like unpacking into there from your tiny little hole that you lived in before.
It's been easier to unpack. It was harder to get it out and into the new space, but now that it's in, it's much easier to just kind of spread it around. Very excited, but now comes the arduous task of buying things and measuring and making it all fit. I have big plans for the future involving my hobby space. I'll be getting an airbrush to speed up my painting.
Ooh.
So I can produce more painted models. I'm going to get a 3D printer so I can start 3D printing stuff. I'll be able to have a table so I can put up a table, work on terrain. There's lots of storage space and workspace in here, so I can do a ton of things. I just need to get to that point. I got to buy the furniture, get the tools, get the things. It's going to just take time, and it's not something that I can just go out and do in a weekend. Like, it's going to take months. But what I will get for it is a very good space, and hopefully more stuff that I can share with you all, and hopefully more stuff that I can show off. I'd love to be able to, finish painting more models and start showing them off and not feel like they look like poop. What about you, Joe? How's your space, new space?
My hobby space. Unpacking, not so bad, if I'm being honest. Once it was all here, I just sort of threw it back around, and I've got more closet space here to store stuff than I did at the previous place, so that's actually nice. And before I left, I sold some armies, which also meant I had less to bring over, which is pretty cool. However, the thing that is just a touch weird is that I still haven't sort of got it paint ready. I've got the stuff up here, but I haven't got it fully unpacked yet. Like the airbrush is still in the basement with the 3D printer, and I got to bring that up and hook it up. I still got to hang art on the walls. Haven't had time to do that. We've been focusing on the rest of the house in the meantime. But I think in getting stuff in here, the hardest part was moving the models. Man, that kind of sucked. Not gonna lie. Magnetizing as much as I could really helped some of it, but it didn't work for everything, and it was kind of stressful. I was worried some stuff was going to get broken, but to the best of my knowledge, everything survived the move. I haven't found, broken models or anything yet. So I think I pulled it off. It was just a little nerve-wracking. That's how I'd put it. I will say, though, I'm about to start hobbying with a frenzy. We've talked about it on the podcast before. I've got some buds around here locally who want to try out Crusade for the first time. It's a thing we've never been able to do before. Well, I should say we haven't done before because it was a sort of system of haves and have-nots, as many things, not Age of Sigmar, but like Warhammer in general is. Where if you didn't have a new codex, one, there was a difference in power, but two, you just didn't have bespoke Crusade rules, which wouldn't feel great. So we all waited until most of us had a codex, and at this point, 3 out of the 4 of us have a codex, and the 4th person doesn't really care to have bespoke Crusade rules, because that's just not how they function. So with the new Orc book, I am ready to start making my Crusade force, and I'm very excited to throw down Orcs. They are the goofiest, most fun army in the game, and I think I'm really going to enjoy playing them. However, John, that comes with a challenge. You see, there's a bit of a logistical challenge here.
You got a little bit of a problem?
Yeah.
Got a little thing that needs to function a little bit better?
Yeah.
Maybe you got a little struggle to deal with? Maybe some strife? Maybe some adversity?
Yeah, John. Yeah. As the kids would say, I'm hella wrecked by GW's release schedule. So,
I don't think that's what the kids say anymore.
John, you don't know what the children say.
We're old. We don't know what they say.
Oh my God, that's a whole other topic. How old I got in the matter of a day. Y'all, I just sit on my porch doing nothing now. I've never lived in a house before, so this is my first time. I just sit on the porch doing nothing. I'm ancient. I don't know what happened. But that's a whole other thing. I get way too much joy out of going to Lowe's now. I got a weed whip. I was happier than a pig in shit. It was wild. Anyway, so the problem I have is that obviously this crusade thing has been planned for a while. For people who've been listening, we've probably talked about this for about a month or more. I think we've actually been talking about it for a month and a half now. And pretty much as soon as we started talking about it, everybody was like, yeah, I'm going to start working on my force. And everybody's like painting their stuff and building their stuff and really getting a head start. So they're like rip roaring and ready to go. And I literally could not buy my crusade force until a few days ago. They just weren't released yet. I didn't have a codex to even play with. My force, lore-wise, they're all like just one step above savage orcs trying to learn technology and go on their first wall. So I wanted all the beast snaggle boys for my force, just for the lore. And yeah, you couldn't buy those. So I ran out last night and I picked them up yesterday. And now I have to have them ready ASAP. And that by itself is a logistical conundrum. It's a logistical conundrum. However, I'm looking around sort of at my pals, and I'm like, hey, how big's y'all's starting force? And one of my friends is playing Ultramarines, and they're like, yeah, I have I think he has 15 models total, something like that, maybe less. I asked my buddy who's playing Sororitas, and he's like, yeah, I got 10 to 15. And I asked my buddy Andrew, and he's like, oh, I have 6. Okay. And then I look at my force, and I have 26 friggin' models. That's for the start, John. That's
very good. That's very nice.
That's game 1. I have to paint 26 models.
Yeah. I have 140 painted cultists.
Oh, well.
I know your pain.
Yes. Yeah, normally it's not so bad. I just do them in little batches of 10, but I got to do them faster than that. So, that airbrush that's currently packed up, I'm going to be unpacking that the moment we're done recording. And my butt is diving into getting these orcs ready. So I've been building. I built yesterday. I built today before recording. We're recording now, and then I'm going to go back just after recording. So while I did have a nice, lovely hobby break, I'm hitting the books hard. I also...
And you're going to record all of it with pictures and post those on Instagram so that our wonderful listeners can go to our Instagram and see your terrible work.
Oh my God, the poor Instagram. I haven't given them an update in forever. I need to post on the Instagram. A little explanation. I'm going to do that tonight. Yeah, I'll post it on Instagram so everybody can keep up with me with my Orktober crusade.
I see what you did there.
I'm very punny. I'm a professional podcaster. Also, I have been looking into some other games. During my hobby hiatus, I didn't actually take a full hiatus from miniature games and stuff because I can't. I just like little plastic army men. I don't know what you want from me. However, I did look into some other systems and I actually pulled the trigger on one. I bought myself a set for a Song of Ice and Fire miniature war game. It's a long name. But essentially it is a miniature war game based off of the famous Game of Thrones book series and TV show. And I don't know, I saw it at Gen Con a few years back, And Cool Mini or Not makes great games, so I had no doubt that it was going to be awesome. But when I was walking around, they only had 2 factions. They had the Starks and the Lannisters, and like 2 factions isn't enough for any of my pals to also get in on it with me. You know what I mean? Like, normally when we play a game, we have what, like 5 or 6 people who want to get in on it?
Yeah. Looking at you, Malifaux.
Yep.
You're next.
And we all like to spread out in factions, so we're not all playing the same thing. But when there's only 2 factions, you really don't have a choice. But the Miniature Maniac released a video a few days ago, essentially talking about how he has fallen in love with the game, and they have added a crap ton of factions from the last time I looked at it. And I was so impressed, and the models look so good, and the rules seem so crisp that I just pulled the trigger on a starter set. Just did. It's just so cheap compared to the Warhammer that I'm used to. Like, I got a full army for $80. It's incredible. And I got to get Night's Watch, which are my favorite faction in the story as well, which makes me very excited. I will admit I'm a little giddy that I get to put Ghost and Jon Snow on the table. Just love it. And Master Aemon gets to back up my dudes, which just makes me giddy as a schoolgirl, because he's the real MVP of that series. So yeah, that'll also be coming soon. I think in between painting orcs, I will paint some Brothers of the Watch to cleanse my palette of what I'm sure is going to be a mind-bending amount of orcs. So I got a lot of painting in my future, John.
So much.
Which actually leads to the topic of this episode. So John, with all this painting, it's all kind of crunched together. I mean, as I've mentioned, I've got the Crusade force that I need to get done, and I need to get it done as soon as possible so we can start the Crusade, which I will say feels very different than just painting normally. You know, painting under a deadline kind of changes the vibe, and I think it's something that many people have experienced. If, like, let's say you're going to a tournament, and you know the tournament is in 2 weeks, and you have to paint up your army before then, you know what the next 2 weeks entails for you. Like, there's no question about what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to paint like crazy to get done. And you're probably still, despite all that effort, going to slide it just under the radar. Just under the wire.
And like maybe you have a game day scheduled with your dudes and you've been putting off painting for a month or 2 months, and now you're looking at it coming in like 3 weeks, and you're like, I got so much to do.
Oh God, I got so many models to paint. It's happened. I think at some point or another, we have all been to a point where we had to paint while crunched for time. And because I was experiencing it, we figured it might be worth having an episode on all its own so that we could try to give you all the tips that we have for helping to make this process as easy as possible. Now, some of these are going to be a little obvious, but here's out. We'll talk through the ones that seem obvious, and maybe you find a little bit of details in there. I think, for me, as I'm trying to think through, like, how am I going to get a 26 orcs painted fast? No, 27. Yeah, 27. How am I going to get 27 orcs painted?
Get it right.
Yeah. And painted looking decent. And I think the answer for me, for a lot of it, is going to be keeping it simple. Keep it real simple. As much as you can, keep your color scheme simple, because that's also going to make it repeatable. Now, I don't mean you necessarily ignore a bunch of details and that you leave a bunch of stuff blank or primed or whatever. Not at all. Not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that maybe you don't put 5 colors into one little detail.
Yeah, maybe don't spend, an hour and a half per power sword in a Grey Knight's army. Yeah. If you need it done in 2 weeks.
Probably not going to go well for you. Maybe if you're looking at a whole bunch of Chaos Cultists, don't go whole hog on doing 4-color workups on all the leather and the belts. You're probably going to have a bad time. Probably going to have a bad time.
And a suggestion I have, in regards to this is kind of before you even sit down to make your paint scheme, separate it all by unit and take like your bigger units and really look at them from 5 feet away. All right. And then base coat them and then look at them again from 5 feet away and go, man, so much of that is not going to be visible.
Mm-hmm.
So much of that is not going to matter. And then kind of use that to help inform the decisions you make going forward. That's what I do with my Skaven, right? I put 100 clan routes on the table. No one cares if they're all individually perfect. Just got to make them look relatively cohesive as a unit and look like they're painted. Look like they're, the metal is metal and the cloth is cloth and the rat fur is rat fur. You don't have to paint each individual eye with an eyeball on a Skaven.
Yeah.
Similarly, you don't have to do that with cultists. You don't have to do that with 100 orc boys. You don't got to do that with the 200 guardsmen, like conscripts. You can fudge a little bit with hordes.
You can. You definitely can. And even on stuff that's not hordes, you don't need to necessarily go whole hog on every piece of that model. So, let's say you go pull up a Games Workshop tutorial to paint anything. Absolutely anything. Pick a model. And watch them try to paint something like... We'll go with boots. They're going to paint boots. They're going to tell you that you have to use a dark brown on the boots. And then they're going to tell you to wash it. And then they're going to tell you to paint 95% of the boots again with the same brown that you just used, but avoiding the recesses. And then go over that brown with a slightly lighter brown over about 75% of the area, avoiding some of the recessed areas. And then they're going to tell you to come back with a light tan and get just some of the big creases. And then they're going to tell you to come back with an even lighter tan, almost white, and get just across the tops of the creases. And before you know it, you just put 5 colors on boots. Okay? 5 colors on boots. And that's fine if you're trying to paint a couple of guys, or if you're painting a lot of guys and you have all the time in the world, or, if you're painting one guy and going hog, totally cool. But if you're painting under a deadline, you don't have 5 colors on boots time. You just don't. You have to look at that and go, all right, what are the most important parts of that color scheme that makes the boots pop? Okay. 1, they have to be a different color brown than most other things. And 2, you want to kind of darken them down to give them a little bit of life. Okay, cool. Maybe I skip a bunch of those wash-ups. Maybe I'm just going to hit it with a brown. I'm going to wash it. And then I'm going to hit it with a dry brush. Boom.
Yep.
All of them. Every one. That's what I'm doing. And I'm just going to dry brush the tops of the boots. Not even all the boot. Just the tops. So you can see a little bit of light up on the top of the foot, like it's coming down from the sky. It's darker in the recesses. And it still looks like a brown color all around. Cool. Bam. Great. You've just taken that from 5 or 6 colors down to 3. 1 is a wash. And also, you're doing faster techniques. If you were going to take a very thin brush and you are going to paint out every crease of the boot, you can do it, but it's going to take a lot of time. You're going to have to look at every one and get in there, get real close, steady your hand, and slowly but surely work through them all. Whereas with a dry brush, it is sort of a to whom it may concern tactic. Where you're just kind of hitting the tops and you're going to keep on moving. You're not looking at it long. You're not spending a whole lot of time there. You're maybe spending 5-10 seconds a model doing dry brush before you hop to the next one. And it's this sort of simplification and simplicity that keeps your painting speed a little faster. And it's what you need when you're really under the gun. And you can do so without even sacrificing a bunch of quality.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And another tactic to use in a similar vein is take a miniature, prime it in whatever color you want it to be, but a couple shades lighter. Say we're going to go with a Night Lord's blue, right? A dark blue Night Lord's armor.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe prime it a lighter blue, a couple shades lighter, and then go over it with a dark blue wash or a dark blue contrast. And allow that to create some definition that you're going to see the primer come through with some darkening recesses, and then from that, just using contrast as a wash or like a dark blue wash, from that, once it's dried, go back over with the dry brush to hit the spots where the light's going to hit, and boom. Like, that's something you don't even need an airbrush for, and it will speed up your painting. Is it going to look Golden Demon? No. Is it going to look like you did it meticulously and edge highlighted every little thing? No. But will it look painted on the table and better than gray plastic? Yeah.
And will I argue it even still look good? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. There's no doubt. I think when a lot of people hear speed painting, they immediately picture like garbage 3 splashes of color on a model put on a table. Y'all, it don't have to be that way. It's
Yeah.
I don't think what you're sacrificing here is a bunch of quality. I think what you're largely sacrificing is like the effort that you're going to have to put into efficiency.
Yeah, it's prioritizing what do you think is the most important part of a model. Like if you have a big monster, right? And that big monster has like a weapon or like has a focal point on the model. Maybe put all of your effort into that and not all of the effort into individual strands of its sinew and its muscle, right?
Yeah, definitely. Or like, let's say you're painting a bunch of Stormcast Eternals. You got to paint like 15 Liberators for your army. Maybe just don't paint behind their shields.
Yeah.
Like, no one's gonna see that. Nobody is gonna see that.
Maybe just prime them in Retributor Gold and then go over it with a Ricklin Fleshade. Like, and then hit some blue, hit some white, hit some like metal parts with some metal parts. And you're good.
Call it a day.
Maybe dry brush a little bit of like lighter shade gold
silver
on there after.
Yeah, just a little touch of silver. Yeah, that's the ticket. It's just, you're giving up all of this effort that you would put to getting to spaces that no one's going to see anyway. And it's fine.
And the best part is a lot of these techniques work for creating a base level quality for a model that you can revisit later. And I'm not saying strip it and start from fresh. I'm saying you can come back to this and apply more techniques, apply more like levels of skill onto these models after you've hit your deadline and gone to the event or gone to the tournament. And you come back and you're like, man, I kind of want to try out some object source lighting on these Space Marine plasma guns. Well, you can do that now. Just whip out the airbrush, go to town.
Or like, let's take the boots example from before. You did a quick dry brush. Cool. Now that you're past the tournament, pull out your smallest brush and get out a slightly lighter shade of brown and start picking out those like little creases in the boots. Nope, you didn't have to paint over, like you didn't have to reprime anything. You're just picking up where you left off. You're essentially picking up that more detailed method because you want to. So it's not like you lost effort in what you did, which I think is key to realize.
And techniques aside, none of that really matters if you can't stay focused, if you can't get it done, if you get unmotivated, if you get distracted, right?
Yeah.
And I am an easily distracted person. Like that is, I have little tactics to keep myself focused. I can get easily distracted from a task I am working on. So I work in batches, right? I work in batches while watching a show or listening to a podcast or like maybe like talking to some friends. And I will work in blocks of maybe 5 Space Marines or 20 Clan Rats. And I will make that decision of how many I'm working on at a time based off of, well, what is my attention span like right now? And how much effort is each of these going to go into step by step? Or have I decided today is blue day where I'm painting all of the blue armor for all of the dudes? Say I have like a 50 model Space Marine army to paint. Maybe I've primed them and I'm ready and I need to get a base coat of blue on everybody. Maybe I just spend the whole night base coating blue. And then I break it up into, okay, well, this squad I'm going to do their gold on, this squad next day, this squad next day, then go back to browns, and then browns, and then browns. Like, or create an organized plan on a piece of paper, maybe a cork board that you keep over your desk, maybe a document you keep on your computer, and keep that organized for how you want to do it. You got 2 weeks. Okay, we'll plan out 2 hours on this night, this night, this night, and this night. I'm going to do this step, this step, this step.
Yeah, I mean, John, you're right where my head was at. Yeah, I had 2 pieces left, and they were kind of logistical advice, and this is the first one, right on the money. You know your schedule best, and you know how much time you have. And whatever that is, whatever you have to work with, write out a schedule that, 1, is realistic, and 2, you will stick to. Just so you have a plan in your head of when you're doing this. Because I found for me, that is immensely helpful to know, like, oh, Monday night I'm spending this much time. I'm roughly going to start on, the zenithal and the base coats. And then Tuesday night, okay, I'm going to finish the base coats. And then I'm going to move on to, starting to do the washes. And then Wednesday night, I'm going to move on to start doing some dry brushing, whatever that is. But you have something to work on and to keep yourself accountable with. And it'll also let you know if you're maybe a little ahead of schedule or a little behind schedule. So, if you notice, man, I'm kind of knocking it out of the park here. If you want to add in, something a little more detailed, you can, because you got the time. Whereas if you're behind, you won't even consider that, because you just know, I can't. And I think that's incredibly helpful, and it's a key to success. And I think, for me, my last one that I think is kind of like the biggest point, the one that I have tried and learned through trial and error to do, is to, so, as the stuff we talked about earlier is kind of like paint philosophy, how to ponder a scheme, how to ponder painting these minis, how to approach looking at them. Are you laughing at me?
I am laughing at you. I
don't know what he's laughing about, but you turd.
My name's Joseph, and this is my seminar on Nietzsche's painting techniques. I'm sorry. I'm blending philosophy and Warhammer miniatures painting together as what if it was a class, and it's very funny in my head.
Well, you're blending those. I'm blending sick colors, John.
Wet blending sweet colors, huh?
As I was saying before I was rudely interrupted,
it's the only thing I'm good for.
All the stuff we were talking about earlier is kind of how to think about minis and how to approach it in this context, and sort of how to think about the paints so you can figure out a scheme. But my biggest piece of advice that I cannot recommend enough, because I have failed to do this before, is figure out your paint scheme before you start. Oh, it will save you so much time if you take one model, you set it down, and you paint that one model to completion. And you figure out your scheme, you write it down in I have a little notebook on my paint desk I write my schemes down in. You can put it in your phone, you can put it on your computer, whatever. But wherever works for you, figure that scheme out and write it down. So that way, you know exactly what you're doing, step by step by step, and in which order and with which colors. Because nothing will eat up your time faster than getting to a piece and going, I don't know what color I want this robe to be. Do I want it kind of like a light red? Do I want a darker red? Am I going somewhere in the middle? Am I highlighting it with a pink? If I change that color, what does it do to my other stuff? Those thoughts and that sort of internal monologue will eat your time away. Ask me how I know.
How do you know, Joe?
Well, it's because I've done it, John. So
you don't say. The man who has painted 3 separate chapters of Space Marines, the same Space Marines have been painted in 3 separate colors.
Shut up, John. Yeah.
Well, no, I get what you're saying, and I think that there's another aspect to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to use an example from Skaven, right? All of my rats look roughly the same. There's a little bit of differentiation between some of the fur. But they're all roughly the same. I have a base level I paint with, right? for a clan rat. And then I have a next level up that I paint for a little bit more detailed, like maybe storm vermin. And then I have a next level up that I paint for like heroes, right? But they all still use that fundamental core base, and then they build off of each other going up. And I'll use more detailed techniques for the more important models, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use Space Marines as another example. If I paint Ultramarines, right, an Ultramarine squad, the normal blue, gold, and was it white?
Blue, gold, white, yeah.
Blue, gold, white, and then I paint a lieutenant, or maybe a Terminator squad. I add a little bit more to the details. Maybe I do a little bit more dry brushing. Maybe I do a little bit more on their power weapons, right? And then I get to the HQ, I get to the captain, right? Well, I've already done all that work through batch painting because I just added him into the batch as I did it for each of these things. And then I get to the end of the project, and all I have left is like maybe 2 or 3 characters that need painted. And oh no, all I have to do is these more advanced techniques. And if I've been going fast by the end of it, I've got plenty of time to focus on getting that right to make it look really top notch because I've gotten my base level stuff done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's invaluable as you go to expand going forward. And when you're under the gun for an event, it will stop all of your hemming and hawing and just keep you moving. Like, you're not thinking about anything. You're just kind of like, all right, got my music, vibe in, knock it out. And like, you will just run through these batches because you already know the plan. You don't have to think about the plan. Plan's right there in front of you. It's written down on a piece of paper. I personally I will take every paint out and I line it up on my paint desk in order. And I will just I'm done with one, throw it back in the paint container, grab the next one. And I keep working. So I don't even have to look at the paper most of the time. Just, I know what's next. And if you're really trying to maximize your sort of models painted per hour, that will help you to get to your event in time. But it's just so good.
I have one that I think that everyone should start thinking about now, even if they're not in a crunch. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a crunch, it might be a bit too late. You might have to go with these other tips. If you aren't in a crunch, I suggest you start this next tip now. Start thinking about these things. Adding these techniques to your toolkit. You know, we spend so much money on new paints or these new tools or all these things for doing the hobby. We also need to put a lot of focus into getting techniques for different times. You know, there will be a time where you're going to need to crunch. Unless you just purely paint for fun, don't play that very often, but maybe you have a limited time schedule. Maybe your life's busy. You still want to feel like you're getting progress in your hobby, and you want to finish models, but you can't spend 4 hours on them a night. Maybe you have to drop it down to 2, and you got to make as many models come out in 2 hours. Well, time to start picking up these techniques that maybe you practiced 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. Start doing that now. Pick some. Maybe you've always wanted to see what a squad of guardsmen look like painted up. Well, buy a squad of guardsmen and don't get super detailed on them. Paint them real fast. See how fast you can go. Mm-hmm. Put them down to, that's neat. Just try it. Try to see how fast you can go with some of the stuff, and you will thank yourself later when you need to go fast, when that crunch time begins. Because you practiced it before, and you know exactly how it's going to go. You don't got to worry about it.
Mm-hmm. And it'll just broaden your horizons, your painting horizons. Which, for me, I think is always a good thing. Because, you never know. You might find, inadvertently, a technique or a color combination that isn't just good for when you're in a pinch. It's just useful. And you will keep it forever. Similar thing happened to me. It's how I found my gold recipe that I came to love. It's because I was really trying to knock out some custodies for a kill team weekend. And I found a paint scheme on YouTube that looked pretty good and actually went pretty fast. And after I got done with them, I looked at them and they looked so good that now that's just my default gold paint scheme. Just is. And I will use them not just when I'm under the knife, but anytime. And I would love for y'all out there to find something similar and add it to your repertoire. Because it's quite a day when you manage to pull it off. And if y'all have found something like that, maybe you have some super sick quick recipes. I'm about to paint 27 orcs in the blink of an eye, and I could use them. So feel free, drop them below. Comment section, we read them all. And if you're not listening to us on YouTube, you're out on one of the other platforms, feel free to reach out to us on social media. Send it our way. We always love to talk to anybody and help you out. And if you need some more personal advice for how to meet a deadline that you got going on and you want our help, let us know. We'll try to help you figure out a paint scheme or whatever that works for you so that you can get your hobby completed so your models can hit the table. And if you really want to go the extra mile, give the podcast a rating or send it to a friend who might be struggling with an event. We're a real small podcast, so it is difficult for the podcast to find new people. So anything you can do to spread it around, we immensely appreciate to feed the algorithm. And now that we're moved in and we're settled, we're going to be back to recording and posting on the social media more often now that our actual lives have settled down just a bit. And John and I are no longer just vaguely angry goblin transients shifting from apartment to apartment.
Maybe you're not. I am still feral.
Well, fair enough. But at least we can cram him into a room and we'll keep the content coming.
Yes. As I scream and throw things at the wall and drink 4 cups of coffee.
Just drink them quietly so Seth doesn't have to edit out the mouth sounds. For now, that's been all of our opinions. Bona fide, Kentucky Fried. We'll see y'all next time.